Welcome to our Emergent Learning session. My name is Monica Hall, and I'm with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. I am a program associate, but I'm located in our Leadership for Better Health strategic portfolio at the foundation. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I identify as a Black woman, and if you cannot see the screen, I am a fair-skinned Black woman with braids, long braids, and a green shirt.
Hi, Rachel Bland, pronouns she, her. I'm a learning associate at Robert Wood Johnson Foundation in the Research, Evaluation, and Learning Department. I'm a Black woman with short curly hair sitting outside in the sun, the blue background.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cass Kingsbury. I use she or they pronouns. I am a program associate at Robert Wood Johnson Foundation in our Strategic Portfolios Department. I am a white person with brown hair. I'm wearing a green floral shirt and really bright highlighter green glasses.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sabrina Ton, she, her pronouns. I am a program associate on the Pioneering Ideas for an Equitable Future team at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. I am an Asian American woman with long dark brown hair, and I'm wearing a chartreuse shirt.
This Spark Talk will demonstrate a facilitated conversation using the Emergent Learning Framework to address the following question. What steps can program staff take to advocate and manage relationships when grantees call in policies and practices that undermine institutional aspirations to advance equity and justice? And remember, this is a calling in conversation, not a calling out conversation. We all represent philanthropic institutions and want to brainstorm how we call ourselves and our institutions in to address power dynamics and barriers to equitable grant making.
So Emergent Learning values the wisdom of everyone in the room and holds experts at equal measure, meaning that everyone has something of value to bring to the table based on their unique role, lived experience, and identity. So we're hoping to demonstrate that today, and based on our unique experiences of rubbing ideas together from different perspectives that can only be shared when we speak our full truths and bring our full selves. So we want to be able to have this conversation and acknowledge that different people have different power and privilege to take action in their own institutions, networks, and communities. EL tables help slow down our conversations and make visible our thinking so that we don't jump straight to problem solving. This gives everyone time and room to contribute their own experience, insights, and hypotheses. Now, this is a diagram of what an emergent learning table is, and it's set up into 4 quadrants, where we go from facts to our thinking, pulling out the insights from our conversation, and then capture some of our if-then thinking of if this happens, what's next. So this will just be a short version of an EL table.
On the screen right now, we have, using the Miro tool, the 4 quadrants that Rachel just described. Our framing question for today is, what steps can program staff take to advocate and manage relationships when grantees call in policies or practices that undermine institutional aspirations to advance equity and justice? So we are going to start again in ground truth. Some prompts you can use to collect stories and data that are relevant to this framing question are, what results did we achieve in the past? What worked and what didn't work in the past, and what can be drawn from evaluation data, research, or real experiences. So we'll start there.
Awesome. So I have a story to share. RWJF has historically funded traditional fellowship modeled leadership development programs, and we have been very intentional about rethinking what leadership means and who can be a leader. In particular, we have decided to learn and fund more in the collective leadership space. So about 2 years ago, I worked on a learning project which provided funds to a set of learning initiatives that sought to help funders better understand how community and movements lead for change by centering those who have experienced the greatest inequities. We funded a set of experiential learning journeys that were designed based on varying contexts. So the work of this group of grantees resulted in an initial set of insights at the community level, grantee level, and foundation level. Ultimately, it felt like as a result of this process, our grantees had a set of questions and critical feedback that we weren't necessarily able to digest. Our grantees were clearly telling us what they needed from us, but ultimately we were not able as an institution to commit to their concrete asks. We invested a lot of time and energy in our relationship building with grantees. So our grantees felt really comfortable being open and honest with us about their critical feedback of the foundation and of philanthropy at large. But ultimately, you know, they had a vision for what more equitable funding in the leadership space could look like in the future. And for me, as a Black woman who has previously done grassroots community building work, it did not feel good to have to deliver the news to our grantees that the foundation was not yet ready to commit to some of the changes in practice and programming that our grantees were asking for.
Monica, I think I've had a similar experience where I was in kind of like a working group, just sharing learning group of grantees. We had frontline staff as well as foundation staff from different philanthropies. And I just found that when we were really talking about, you know, power differentials and the relationships between grantees and program staff, particularly program officers and all of that, that there were folks on the funder side that didn't really want to take responsibility for the institution, or I found that they got a little defensive. And that was really difficult because I could see both sides. And, you know, I think we as associates get kind of caught in that middle really easily because we don't have as much power on the institutional side. So I guess I'm wondering what maybe worked in your situation, Monica, and maybe what didn't.
Yeah, so the thing that worked was the investment in relationship building between the folks like myself and our staff extender that was working on this project in partnership with the grantees. We spent about a year after the end of their individual projects doing some learning and having collaborative sessions on Zoom where we were able to really have open and honest conversations about what, you know, was happening as a result of the work in the individual grants. And the grantees worked really hard on a presentation together and created a list of 5 challenges facing philanthropy for philanthropy to work on. And we definitely shared those. We created a website. We worked with a communications firm to help distill the learnings coming out of that officially.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that, Monica. And I think that what's so interesting about this example is that you did have a very formalized and like, you had invested a lot in this relationship building and the process and making sure there were formal structures to have those feedback conversations. I will just quickly validate this idea of like maintaining an honest rapport with grantees in order to be able to for them to continue being honest with us about like critical feedback that we need to hear, but also I think just keeping an ongoing conversation that feels more productive for everyone, more valuable, hopefully. And to give an example, because we're supposed to give examples, I had a grantee where one of the challenges was that I was not able to confirm if there would be a renewal of their grant until like really late in the game. And when I was delivering this news, I just tried to be very honest about acknowledging the challenges that this puts on them for planning, for outcomes, just, acknowledging the weird dynamic of the kinds of asks and the sort of like flexibility and quick response that funders may demand from grantees, but grantees can't seem to demand from funders. And it felt it wasn't an easy situation, but I felt like the grantee and I were able to keep up just discussions about this that were really useful. So I think that that being honest and being willing to talk about those tensions when they come up is really important.
Typically, when using an EL table, you'll continue to go through the rest of the quadrants with one another to really build your learning together and do so collaboratively. For the purposes of this Spark Talk, I'll be going through the rest of these 3 quadrants, just explaining the insights, hypotheses, and opportunities that we found through our conversation. So we first saw that there are these added power differentials between grantees and program staff, which sometimes make those relationships a little bit more difficult to manage and to work through. But we found that relationships based in honesty helped POs and grantees feel supported by one another and enabled richer learning. And in that richer learning, we found that it's directly related to the grantee, which is difficult to translate to leadership, which makes adapting learning from those relationships to policy a lot harder. Additionally, we found that this applying learning to policy is an adaptive or an emergent challenge, which means that institutions may not be ready to act since hierarchy and bureaucracy can inhibit flexibility. Next, we'll move to hypotheses. Hypotheses represent our ideas about what we do with this new shared knowledge, new ideas based on insights and next level thinking. It's moving into if-then statements. So our first hypothesis is if we can create more relational opportunities for grantees to learn with our institution's decision makers, then it may be easier for them to connect the dots when they make decisions about policies or practices. Our second hypothesis is that we have collective/shared conversations in our institutions. When these tensions arise, then we'll recognize patterns and opportunities for policy change. Our third hypothesis is if these conversations happen over and over, or they're repeated, the message will eventually be heard. And lastly, if we are honest and open about these tensions with grantees, we will develop relationships that are more valuable on both sides. Lastly, to take our learning into action, we'll list opportunities that we can test our learnings and our hypotheses. First, we came up with the example of Catalyze, an RWJF conference when decision makers were literally sitting at tables with grantees. While this wasn't an upcoming opportunity, it happened in the past, it was a good example and for us to start thinking about what other opportunities are there that we can invite leadership or decision makers to. Additionally, when you're starting a new relationship with a grantee, that's an opportunity to set the tone and engage in really honest conversations. Currently at RWJF, we have ongoing processes to update our practices and to make them more equitable. So there are sessions where our leadership are in conversations with us about that. We potentially could find some opportunities to test hypotheses 2 and 3 here. Additionally, we have end of grant calls on pioneering ideas. And during those end of grant calls, we love to invite colleagues across teams to really share in that learning and hear directly from grantees to create a ripple effect of learning. Lastly, Monica mentioned that there's a new authorization that will be experimenting with new leadership development programs to learn what we can do differently, and that will infuse lessons learned from the initiative. It can be really difficult to move the needle, and it can be really difficult to feel like you have enough power to make institutional change. But we hope that this strategy, the Emergent Learning Table, can help you start to really slow down your thinking, make your thinking visible so that you can feel like you have that collective power to make change.
Feel free to reach us at any of the emails below. Thank you all for tuning in for our Spark Talk.